even as we answer some questions, others remain frustratingly unanswered, and even more questions are raised. Evolution, missing links, behavior, coloration, all will be explored on Paleo Mysteries. Transitional pterosaurs.
Pterosaurs. They were the rulers of the skies for over 100 million years. They've taken on dozens of shapes and sizes. Some were so unique, they bordered on alien in their appearance. Weird, gawky beasts with thin arms and legs. Some were small, the size of tiny bats or pigeons you could hold in your hands. Others were so large, they might as well have been a dinosaurian predator, able to look a giraffe in the eye while on land. Pterosaurs were masters of the air, and some were even masters of the ground. They could take to the air with ease and stay there adrift for countless miles. Some didn't even need to flap their wings, soaring on the warm currents of the lower atmosphere. They bested birds during the height of their reign in every way. So much so, birds didn't even truly evolve into the masters of the air they are today until these reptobats went down in the KT extinction. However, with all their bits and bobs, we still know virtually nothing about their evolution. Unlike the whales or the horses, there are no transitional fossils in the fossil record for the hairy flying reptiles. The fossil record shows them suddenly appearing, fully capable of flight, during the mid to late Triassic period. Early examples of this group include Eudomorphodon and Dimorphodon. To cut to the basics, we know that pterosaurs are reptiles. Judging by the holes in their skulls, diapsid reptiles to be exact, but anything more specific is tricky. Since the diapsid group is so large and extensive, pretty much including all reptiles living and extinct, the image from where these flyers come from is a muddled mess of unknowns. Since the characteristics of pterosaurs are so unlike that of any other diapsid reptile, it is not sure where they fit in the group. The skull bones have merged together. Their humerus is way different from other members of the diapsid group to help accommodate flight-capable muscles. The vertebrae have undergone similar modifications, and plenty more. This makes it even more difficult to pinpoint an ancestor, when there are no primitive diapsid reptiles to show primitive adaptations to the flight-capable bodies of the pterosaurs. They have been pinpointed to be a member of the Archosauri also. This group holds the dinosaurs, crocodiles, and their relatives. A possible common ancestor has been proposed in the generic form of an animal that may have appeared similar to the genus Scleromochlus. This little ornithodon looked pretty much just like a lizard, except for the honking big kangaroo legs it was sporting. A little too small for some Air Jordans, but the symbolism is key here. However, this is not in the discussion. For just like with the transitional fish-being, Tiktaalik, the characteristics of a transitional animal can be speculated beforehand, and eventually one of those speculations should be found to be true, or not. Pterosaurologist Mark Whitten, when not producing rather well put together and artistically well done pieces of prehistoric flora and fauna, has proposed 5 stages of pterosaur evolution that may prove to be accurate if and when a transitional species is ever found. He has dubbed these stages HYPTA, or Hypothetical Pterosaur Ancestors. We're shortening that to HPA. His speculations are as follows. HPA-A, Hyperactive Groundhopper. These animals would have resembled Scleromochlus. They already held their limbs beneath the body when walking. A coat of primitive pycnofibers helped them manage their body temperature, an advantage for creatures with high metabolism, which would otherwise have lost more of their heat to the environment. They spent most of their lives on the ground, perhaps occasionally venturing into trees in search of food or a hiding place from predators. HPA-B, reptilian squirrel. These proto-pterosaurs had limbs more adapted to life hopping amongst branches and between canyon walls than in HPA-A. They also hunted more of their prey in high places. The fifth finger became vestigial and would be lost in later forms. The limbs were more mobile than in the previous stage, which would allow later pterosaurs to spread them out to create efficient airfoils. HPA-C, early glider. These animals had evolved short but somewhat wing-shaped membranes between the now elongated fourth finger and body. This would have further improved their ability to jump long distances without losing height, unlike the membranes of passive gliders, which would merely have served to slow falls. HPA-D, poorly flying early pterosaur. The wings of these pterosaurs had become larger and more elaborate than in the previous stage, requiring them to be folded back when not in use. The claw on the wing finger had been lost, since it no longer served a purpose, assuming they had a digit foreclaw, which would have been unusual for archosaurs. HPAE, the real McCoy. The common ancestor of the colorful variety of later pterosaurs arose during this stage. These pterosaurs' proportionally larger wing membranes made them more easily capable of powered flight than in HPAD. Unfortunately for science, the size of these early pterosaur ancestors would have been teeny tiny, and their bones would have been very fragile. This means that a transitional pterosaur species may not have ever fossilized at all. Although we can pinpoint the earliest common ancestor of pterosaurs, like the proposed Scleromucklus, then we may not necessarily need a transitional fossil to suggest what the evolutionary process looked like. As Mark Whitten has speculated with his hypothetical pterosaur ancestors, it would just remain not so scientifically verified. Ever. Well, that about wraps it up for this mystery. The answer we seek to solve it would be an Archaeopteryx-like fossil of a pterosaur ancestor. But until then, this mystery remains unsolved. A special thanks goes out to all the artists whose work we use in conjunction with our videos. Without them, these videos would not be the same. Thanks goes out to Ceri Thomas and his Tumblr blog, Nick's Draw Stuff. He has helped us with coming up with ideas for this series and has allowed us to use his artwork. He's a very talented artist, so go check out his stuff. Link in the description.
Told his hands to grab the stag by its cold antlers and haul it from the snowdrift. Commanded his legs to drag it back to the cabin. Handled hatchet till tinder split. He kindled that ancestral magic, and the flames seemed to speak. Behold, beneath the snow, serpent sleep, cold bundles.